Jody with Real Progress in Action. I have three rights and democracy organizers here today, one from Vermont and two from New Hampshire. We have James Haslam. James, what's your official title?
Executive Director of Rights and Democracy.
All right. Executive Director of Rights and Democracy New Hampshire. We got Isaac Grimm. He is the New Hampshire State Organizer. And Heather Stockwell, who is the
Regional Organizer.
Oh, there we go. Love that one. So we in New Hampshire have an interesting perspective on Bernie. Of course, we've been advocating for the policies that he's been, decades advocating for. So we have certain appreciation. Of course, he won. He won New Hampshire, and these folks had a lot to do with it, going out there and volunteering and getting people out to vote and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of wanted to check in with everybody. We had Heather and Isaac on before, and now James is here as well. Vermont, of course, is the state where Bernie is the center of where he's from. So I'm sure James has a certain appreciation for Bernie as well. But I just wanted to check in with you guys, and so we can kind of go around one at a time and kind of give our impressions of how we're feeling about Bernie dropping out. Yeah. So James, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Jody, so much for having us. Yeah, as you say, being in Vermont, I've been an organizer now for more than 2 decades here, and so I've worked with Bernie for many years, and it's been extraordinary to see how his campaign and the movement behind his campaign, organizations like us, everyone involved in it has really been able to transform the narrative of this country, really raise expectations to millions and millions of people about what this country actually could become. And so it's obviously sad. We came incredibly close to actually winning this thing, but even winning, I'm always reminded by the fact that, even if we won, our job basically looks the same. It's just, we have to organize our communities. Winning the presidency wouldn't have been enough. And it won't be enough until we actually are building this movement up and down the ballot, to impact elections. But even more importantly than that, getting strong enough to be able to hold people accountable between elections. So for us at Rights and Democracy, it's, elections are incredibly important time to make a difference, but it's only one piece of what needs to be done. So it's sad, but the work continues, and there's a lot to be thankful for about what's been built over these last 5 years.
Totally agreed. Isaac, how about you? How you feeling?
A little better than a day or two ago. Obviously it's sad, but I just keep coming back to how important Bernie's campaign and movement has been, and reminding myself of like the very slogan of the entire movement, right? Is not me, us. This is about us. It's about us organizing locally. It's about us, building power on a local level all the way up to national. No one candidate is ever going to be the savior. This is up to thousands and millions of us across the country getting together and demanding what we deserve. A fair healthcare system, a fair economy that's not leaving people behind, an end to racist policies, an end to environmental destruction. And this is something that, even though Bernie's not going to end up being the nominee, is something that there's still a lot of opportunity for us to fight for and win in this moment of pandemic. And in general, with the many, many people who have, because of Bernie's movement, stepped up, gotten inspired, seen that there's a lot of value and there's a lot of power in organizing around elections, and that all of us can step up to become leaders in our communities. And so many people have just like built the skills to do that. So we're in, I think now, a way better position to fight for and win progressive change than we've ever been. And a lot of that is thanks to the movement that's been built up over the last 4 years, and so many young people getting inspired and getting involved.
Absolutely. What do you think, Heather?
Yeah, it is certainly sad. I was starting to do the math a couple of weeks ago because I'm also a delegate, and I am heartbroken that I don't get to go to the convention to vote for my guy, and that doesn't really seem possible to be happening, but it is. And so I've been sort of following the numbers and just starting to realize we have a big fight ahead just in the delegate math, let alone the primary math. So, around the sort of start of us all coming back into our homes to isolate was around the time that this was all coming together for me. And I did spend a few days just grieving. At the end of the day, it does come back to policy. And I've been reflecting a lot on, like, we have a lot of work to do on education, educating people around the political analysis that we share. If money in politics is a big issue, then we need to really be addressing that together, as Isaac said, and really understanding how that impacts our electoral politics. But I am excited to just sort of dive back into the sort of issues and the policy that got us here in the first place, that we're all so passionate about, right? Like, I mean, Isaac was listing, healthcare has become such an important issue right now. Wages also. So many of our issues have just come to the forefront, and I believe that Bernie dropped out for all the right reasons. He has his priorities straight. And as sad as I am about it, I also feel like it's the responsible thing to do. And so I appreciate that he's made his choice for those reasons. So, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I think that one of the big things, or at least my impression, I don't think it's just my impression, but anyway, is that what Bernie did was, one of the things that Bernie did was when he started lifting up people's stories and people's voices, lifting up these, struggles that people were going through. And so many people around the country, myself included, were like, I'm not the only one. There are so many other people who are going through this. What's happening to me is not an anomaly. It's happening to everyone, and there's a reason for it that is fixable. We just refuse to. So I think, what do you think? Because I think a lot of what we need to do moving forward is to continue to lift up those stories and continue to empower those people. We do that by educating them so that they do understand that it's not just them, that there's a reason, understand the reason why that's happening and how they can fix it. And then also education on specific policies. I'm just wondering, so what exactly as you're kind of trying to formulate a strategy going forward, right? What do you think is the first thing on your list? Next steps. And go in the same order. Start with James. Isaac has something to say.
Yeah, we've been spending a lot of time talking about this. It's, I think it's not just Bernie dropping out for us is made us really rethink some of our strategies. But also, obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted our communities in just profound ways. And the two things relate. As Heather was saying, people are thinking about the access to the healthcare system more so now than they were. We have record unemployed people across the country, and we have an employment-based healthcare system. Those two things don't go together, when you factor in a health crisis. So, lifting up those stories right now of people who are impacted, so much of what our challenge is to really, pierce the narrative of what, it's not just the money in politics. That's really a huge challenge in elections. But it's why it's so important for you to be doing this show, and for people to be making, people-centered media to share out the stories, is because, mostly the way that we get information is through corporate media that has their own agenda. And sometimes there's good stuff on there. There's certainly some good journalists, but for the most part, they're not going to tell the story of our broken healthcare system in the way that Bernie's campaign did, in the way that Rights and Democracy is trying to do. So it is really important in this moment, particularly, that we capture around like all the things that our system is not set up to support people as much as it is to support corporations making profit in the next quarter of the stock market. And so that's what is coming to bear. I mean, all countries around the globe are having a really tough time dealing with this pandemic, but there is no doubt that if we actually had policies in place that were about putting people first, were really about the basics, making sure people have access to healthcare, food, housing, and income, those basic issues are coming to bear right now, and we have an opportunity to meet our community where they're at, which is fear and trying to think about how they support their families in the next couple of weeks, let alone months and years, and tell a different story of what's possible. And we're also very much in mind that this is a terrible crisis that we're going through right now, economic crisis and a healthcare crisis. But we have some even bigger crises coming down the pike with the climate and ecological crisis that will, do the same thing to the economy and health. And we need to really build, a resilient people's movement that's powerful enough to build the democracy that will be necessary to make those decisions and put the policies in place for our community. So that's how I think about moving forward.
Like the way you think. Go ahead, Isaac.
Yeah, the like real specific ways that we're thinking about doing that is trying to reach out to everybody that's in our network. We've been texting everybody that we possibly can and sharing out mutual aid support spreadsheets so folks can sign up to support their neighbors, and folks can sign up if they need help, right? So we've been doing a lot to just like be on the ground and support people directly in this time of crisis and in this time of need. That's number one, is we need to like have each other's backs right now. We need to be reaching out and connecting with people and being there for them, even if it's just like they need somebody to talk to because they're super isolated right now. But we've been running into people who have like been rationing their food, or who have just had some really basic needs and have been struggling in isolation. So we're trying to reach out to and connect with everybody that we can, and help support folks who want to help others, right? And just use the kind of basic skills of community organizing to support that, right? So that's one big thing. Another big thing is that we're doing a lot of calls and seeking to have really deep conversations with people, and reaching out to folks that are undecided voters to talk to them about Trump and how he's handling the pandemic crisis, or not handling it, and really seeking to have those deep conversations where we're not trying to get in arguments with people. We're not trying to just bombard them with facts. We're really approaching it as seeing where they're at and then connecting them with them around their stories in a way that's going to help kind of humanize others. A lot of what makes the right wing so strong and Trump so strong is that scapegoating and blaming others it's a really powerful thing, and it's really effective. But it's something that we can undo if we really try to draw out the stories of, if somebody thinks that, right, like undocumented folks shouldn't get health care right now. Let's talk to them about somebody that they know who wasn't born in the United States. Let's humanize that person. Let's go deep there, and then share our stories of the people that we know and love, who maybe weren't born in the U.S., but who, lo and behold, are human beings who have human rights. Right. So we're having a lot of these deep conversations to try to move folks. And then there's a ton of opportunity for us to connect online. Thank God we have technologies right now where we can actually see each other face to face, and we can bring a lot of people together. And there's a lot of demands that we're making on the state level for what we think our legislature and what our governor should be doing to fill in the many cracks from the stimulus bills that have passed so far, which are like still leaving out communities of color, still leaving out undocumented folks, and which are falling far short of what real like working people need. So we're organizing on the local level. We're doing a lot of that mutual aid. And we're putting out the demands there for what we know needs to be happening within our communities.
Awesome. How about you, Heather?
I don't know. I don't think I have to say anything after that.
Covered everything.
Just switch the order next time.
I'll put a pin in yes. It's about outreach right now and meeting people where they're at, because people are all over the place in my experience in making calls in my region, from everywhere from just losing their job to, oh, I still have my job at home, but I'm also teaching my kid while my husband is out at work. And there's just a magnitude of different scenarios going on out there. And to people that are lonely and isolated, or are compromised in their health in some way. So that's been really, sort of driving me and getting me out of my own funk. And I think some of the leaders that we're engaging in helping make those calls with us, I think they're finding the same thing, is that connection with other folks, even if it is by phone or by video call, is important, because we are all in this together. And if we can keep driving that point home that we are all in this together, and here's how we analyze it in a political way, then we might have some deeper conversations, as Isaac is was talking about. And that deep canvassing program is really, really exciting, because folks are getting out of their own sort of bubble. They're not preaching to the choir in these conversations. They're talking to people they don't necessarily agree with. And in this world we're in right now, that doesn't happen as often as it probably should, because it's how we work things out and figure out solutions to things and come to understand things. And so I'm really excited about that, because it's not about sort of forcing your opinion on someone else. It's about having a conversation and letting them make their own conclusions. And so it really sticks for a longer period of time too. It's like people have made that conscious change in their own minds. So it tends to stick around. So I think it is really exciting. But it is a whole new world. We are doing everything sort of virtually now, and just trying to think creatively outside the box and offer even just some opportunities for people to connect with each other right now, because that's what we all need, is to remember that there's other people out there while we are all in isolation in our homes. So.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming in. I'm so excited about everything that you're doing, and I just want to be a part of it. But you know how that
You
works.
are a part of it.
So thank you guys for coming on, and yeah, I'm excited for the next steps. Let's do it.
Thanks for having us, Jody,
Thanks
and
so
thanks
much.
for being part of this.
Stay
Take
well.
care.
Bye.